Hello and welcome. The headline says India's Supreme Court strikes down electoral bonds. Kim supervises new surface to sea missile test. Field puts spotlight on Philippines vice president. Investigators seek motive in chief Super Bowl shooting. And US gains intel on Russian space nuclear capabilities. On elections, India's Supreme Court has scrapped a 7-year-old election funding system called electoral bonds that permits individuals and companies to donate money to political parties anonymously and without any limits. Thursday's pronouncement is seen as a setback for Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party (BJP), which has been the major beneficiary of the system it introduced in 2017. The secretive election funding system was challenged by opposition members and a civil society group on grounds that it stole the public's right to know who had given money to political parties. A person or company can buy these bonds from the state-run State Bank of India (SBI) in denominations ranging from 1,000 rupees, that's $12, to 10 million rupees, $120,000, and donate them to a political party of their choice. Under the system, the bonds are then delivered to the party, which can exchange them for cash. The bonds, which are exempted from tax, do not carry the name of the donor. On Thursday, a 5-judge top court bench headed by Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrachud said the system is unconstitutional and directed the SBI to not issue any more of these bonds. Critics have condemned the campaign financing method as an opaque way to funnel black money to parties. Prashant Bhushan, a lawyer representing one of the petitioners, said according to reports outside the court in New Delhi, the Supreme Court has struck down the electoral bond scheme and all the provisions that were made to bring it into effect. The ruling will help end political mischief. Jandeep Chokar from the Association for Democratic Reforms ADR transparency watchdog and lead petitioner in the court case, said since their introduction, electoral bonds had become a major method of political funding. Electoral bonds were first sold in 2018. ADR calculates that over half of all donations received by political parties used the scheme. While the donors are technically anonymous, critics fear the government will access data from the state-owned SBI. Modi's BJP defended electoral bonds, arguing that because the donations are channeled through the banking system, the process is more transparent than direct cash donations. Cash donations are still allowed but carry no tax exemption. However, transparency rights activists allege the electoral bond program reduces accountability in the world's biggest democracy. In the 2019 general election, spending by candidates and political parties ran up to $8.7 billion according to the New Delhi-based Center for Media Studies. According to reports, Kim Jong-un, North Korean leader, has overseen the test of the latest surface-to-sea missiles while ordering his military to boost its readiness in disputed waters north of the South Korean border inland of Yongbyon. The report on the launches on Thursday came a day after South Korea's military said North Korea had fired numerous cruise missiles in waters off its eastern port of Wonsan. The test was Pyongyang's 6th missile launch event of the year. Reports said Kim supervised the evaluation test fire of new type surface-to-sea missile Padasuri 6 to be equipped by the Navy and expressed great satisfaction over the results of the test fire. The missiles hit their projected aims after flying over the East Sea for 1,400 seconds. It said the East Sea is known as the Sea of Japan internationally. Kim also accused South Korea of regularly violating his country's sovereignty by insisting on a Northern Limit Line (NLL), the maritime demarcation line between the two Koreas, and conducting maritime patrols and interdiction of third-party ships, according to reports. The North Korean leader also gave orders to his military to strengthen its readiness in the waters north of Yongbyon Island and to the west of the Korean Peninsula in the region of the NLL. Waters near the NLL, which was drawn up by the United States-led United Nations Command at the end of the Korean War in 1953, have been the site of previous clashes between the two Koreas. In 2010, North Korea torpedoed a South Korean warship in the Yellow Sea, killing 46 sailors, and fired a barrage of artillery shells at Yeonpyeong Island, killing 4 others. According to more reports, Kim referred to the de facto border as a ghost one without any ground in the light of international law. Kim also promised that Pyongyang would thoroughly defend our maritime sovereignty by force of arms and actions, not by any rhetoric. Now on politics, the Philippine Vice President and the odds-on favorite to succeed President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., Sara Duterte Carpio, has found herself staring a difficult feud between the president and her own father. Last month, ex-president Rodrigo Duterte accused Marcos of using drugs and publicly floated the idea of a military coup to unseat the president. Last week, he proposed the secession of Mindanao, a southern island and the base of his political power. Marcos firstly reacted by saying his predecessor's judgment had been decreased by his use of the synthetic opioid fentanyl, which he earlier admitted to using to recover from a motorcycle accident. He also said the call for a separate Mindanao was doomed to fail, and his national security advisor threatened to use force to defeat any secession attempts. The ongoing political spat has put Duterte Carpio in a bind, threatening to reveal the alliance fashioned by her and Marcos before they were elected in 2022. She has recently split with the president on many issues, including the government reopening peace talks with communist rebels and an ongoing inquiry of her father's deadly drug war by the International Criminal Court, ICC. But the Marcos administration's effort to change the Philippine constitution has created the biggest cleavage between the country's 2 most prominent political families. Marcos says he wants to remove existing constitutional restrictions that limit foreign investment. Critics in the Duterte political camp, however, accuse Marcos of plotting to switch the country to a parliamentary system and install House Speaker Martin Romualdez, Marcos' cousin and a close ally, as his successor before the next presidential election in 2028. Duterte Carpio has tried to remain neutral even as her father's attacks on the president have continued. She was the only member of the Duterte family to appear with Marcos last week when the president visited flood-hit areas of Mindanao. Now, security forces are working to determine who opened fire and what motivated a shooting that killed 1 and injured over 20 others at the end of the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl victory rally, sending fans clad in red jerseys running, taking cover or tending to others on the ground as law enforcement swarmed the area, confetti still blowing in the wind. An approximated 1 million people had assembled just steps away from Union Station in downtown Kansas City, Missouri, for the parade and rally to mark the Chiefs' repeat championship win on Wednesday, with players still on the stage when chaos erupted to the sound of gunshots. Several people were shot, including children, authorities said. According to Kansas City Police Chief Stacey Graves, 3 people were detained as officers gathered at the scene, who added that guns were recovered at the scene but didn't specify how many. No charges had been announced as of Wednesday night and no suspects had been named. As the investigation gets underway, many unanswered questions remain. How many people opened fire during the event? How many shots were fired, and what motivated the violence that turned a day of celebration into a tragedy? The police chief said at Wednesday's news conference, "We do not have a motive, but we are asking those who may potentially have any kind of information, a witness or video, to contact the police." The shooting marked the newest setting where Americans saw a sense of safety punctured by gun violence following shootings at churches, schools, grocery stores, outlet malls, and other locations. The violence on Wednesday was at least the 48th mass shooting in the United States so far this year, according to the Gun Violence Archive. Police are collecting physical and digital evidence, interviewing witnesses, and asking victims some questions, Graves said. The FBI and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives both responded to Kansas City to help local police, according to a Justice Department spokesperson. Still ahead on the news, according to numerous sources familiar with the intelligence, The US has fresh intelligence on Russian military capabilities connected to its efforts to deploy a nuclear anti-satellite system in space. The intelligence was briefed to Congress and major US allies, and some lawmakers say it is grave enough that it should be declassified and made public. While the intelligence is concerning, numerous senior members of Congress briefed on the information on Wednesday stressed that it does not pose an immediate threat to the US or its interests. According to 3 US officials familiar with the intelligence, the system remains under development and is not yet in orbit. It's not clear how far the technology has progressed, one of the officials said. A separate US official said, according to reports, that the threat does not involve a weapon that will be used to attack humans. It was not instantly clear whether the intelligence referred to a nuclear-powered anti-satellite capability or a nuclear-armed capability. While members of Congress modulated the imminence of the threat, an anti-satellite weapon placed in orbit around Earth will pose a significant danger to U.S. nuclear command and control satellites, said Hans Christensen, director of the Nuclear Information Project at the Federation of American Scientists. The U.S. relies on such satellites, which he called essential, to ensure constant, seamless control over its nuclear arsenal. Christensen said other countries have tested anti-satellite weapons in the past, but this will be an escalation, and the US has made clear that it will react very forcefully to an attack on its nuclear command and control satellites. If it's orbital, it's a new level of threat to the system, whether it's nuclear or not, added Christensen, who added that even conventional weapons on an orbital anti-satellite system will pose a significant threat to the United States. The chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Republican Representative Mike Turner of Ohio, earlier on Wednesday ignited a firestorm on Capitol Hill when he issued a cryptic statement announcing that a panel had information concerning a serious national security threat. In a letter to lawmakers inviting them to view the intelligence in the committee's classified spaces, he said that it related to a destabilizing foreign military capability that should be known by all congressional policy makers. Immediately, lawmakers started tramping down to the House basement to learn what the intelligence was. Some left underwhelmed. One Democratic member with deep national security experience said they had never before received that kind of urgent summons over a national security matter during their time in Congress, and that the intelligence they saw when they arrived was not urgent enough to justify Turner's alarm pulling. The Republican Speaker of the House, Rep. Mike Johnson, within hours, tried to tamp down the imbroglio, saying there is no cause for alarm and indicating that he had known about the intelligence since at least January. On more stories on economy matter, Japan recession lets Germany become third largest economy. Japan's economy has shrunk suddenly because of weak domestic consumption, pushing the country into recession and causing it to lose its position as the world's third largest economy to Germany. In the last 3 months of 2023, gross domestic product GDP contracted at an annualized pace of 0.4%, the Cabinet Office said on Thursday, after having thinned in the earlier quarter. A recession is typically defined as 2 consecutive quarters of economic contraction. The data confirms that Japan's economy was the world's 4th largest behind Germany in US dollar terms last year. Private consumption, which accounts for half of the economy, fell by 0.2% as Japanese consumers battle higher prices of food, fuel, and other goods. Japan imports 94% of its base energy requirements and 63% of its food, so the weak yen significantly contributes to a higher cost of living, Neil Newman, a Tokyo-based strategist at Japan Macro, said, according to report. Private consumption was particularly weak and market expectations was for it to be flat, he said. Unfortunately, this will get worse in January following the Sea of Japan earthquake. People stop spending in times of natural disasters. Now to Russia-Ukraine war. Ukraine sinks another Russian warship. Ukraine claims it has now deactivated a third of Russia's Black Sea fleet after its military intelligence said it sank another Russian warship in a sea drone attack off the coast of Crimea on Wednesday. Caesar Kunikov, Russia's landing ship, was attacked with Mogara V5 drones that punctured critical holes on its left side before sinking, the Ukrainian military intelligence agency said. According to Ukraine's count that aligns with Ukrainian claims last week that they had disabled around 33% of Russia's warships, amounting to 24 disabled ships and 1 submarine. The landing ship Caesar Konikov will be the 25th disabled ship. Wednesday's attack was conducted by the agency's Group 13 Special Forces Unit in cooperation with Ukraine Security and Defense Forces, the statement said. The ship had been tied for 10 days at a specialized docking location where Russia could load it with weapons and military equipment. The Defense Intelligence of Ukraine had said. It also said the ship appeared to be loaded at the time of the attack. This has to do with the course of the special military operation, so it is the prerogative of the Ministry of Defense. I suggest you refer to the statements of our military colleagues. I can't say anything about this, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said. Wednesday's attack is the newest in a series of Ukrainian strikes on Russia's navy as it tries to land both strategic and symbolic blows against Russian forces that annexed Crimea in 2014. As Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine nears its second anniversary, the front lines have for months remained mostly static, but since last year, Ukraine has pivoted to the Black Sea, saying its strikes on Crimea and Russian ships are intended to isolate the peninsula and make it more difficult for Russia to sustain its military operations on the Ukrainian mainland. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg on Wednesday, when asked about the incident in a Brussels press conference, said broadly that the Ukrainians have been able to inflict heavy losses on the Russian Black Sea Fleet and that this is a great achievement, a great victory for Ukrainians. The NATO chief also noted that the fact that Ukraine's armed forces have pushed away the Russian Black Sea Fleet and opened a corridor has allowed them to export grain and other commodities to the world market. Now in African scenes, U.S. lawmakers to review SA-U.S. ties, citing ICJ case. The U.S. State Department terms in affairs with the Southern African nation are strong. U.S. Congressmen John James and Jared Moskowitz, however, would like the ties to come under review. They introduced a bill in the U.S. House of Representatives on February 6th that seeks to undergo a review of the bilateral relations between the United States and South Africa. Representative John James accused Pretoria of building ties to countries and actors that undermine the U.S.'s national security and threaten the U.S. way of life through its military and political cooperation with China and Russia and its support of U.S.-designated terrorist organization, Hamas. It calls South Africa's ICJ case against Israel a politically motivated one and claims it is wrongfully accused Israel. The country's top diplomat, Naledi Pandor, said she believes South Africa offers quality products to the U.S.'s market, and I wish that relationship to grow. Vincent Maguire, spokesman for President Cyril Ramaphosa, said, according to report, that a lot of the issues raised by the members of Congress are issues that have either been dealt with through our own judicial processes or clarified in public communication. The bill still has to be discussed and passed. I'll bring you more stories just after this moment. Don't go anywhere. You're welcome back. Now stories from Nigeria on economy matters. Emirs, MBA lament hardship as Tinubu governors meet. On Wednesday, northern traditional rulers of the Nigerian Bar Association condemned the hardship in the country caused by the fuel subsidy removal, which had resulted in higher transport costs and food inflation. The traditional rulers and the MBA asked the federal government to speedily tackle the situation, just as President Bola Tinubu will on Thursday hold a closed-door meeting with state governors at the Aso Rock Villa, Abuja, to proffer solutions to the economic crunch in the country. Two presidency officials who spoke on condition of anonymity on Wednesday stated the meeting with the governors will be held before the president's departure to Ethiopia for the African Union meeting. Also, the Katsina State Governor, Dikko Rada, and an aide to Governor Nasser Idris of Kebbi State confirmed the planned meeting with the president. The session is coming a few days after the governors elected on the platform of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) related Nigeria's economic situation to that of Venezuela, a South American country in the throes of hyperinflation, escalating starvation, disease, crime, and high mortality rates. But the presidency criticized the performance of the governors, pointing out their failure to pay salaries, pensions, and the 30,000 minimum wage. Protests has broken out in different parts of the country in response to the high cost of living, with citizens in Niger, Kano, Kogi, Ondo, and other states demanding solutions to the economic crisis. The organized labor had also complained about the situation in the country, threatening to go on strike by February 23rd if the federal government failed to provide the palliatives and other assistance that could mitigate the economic pains of Nigerians. And finally, on the news, Tinubu to join AU summit in Addis Ababa. Presidency has said President Bola Tinubu will leave Abuja today for Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to participate in the 37th ordinary session of the Assembly of the African Union AU heads of state and government. The theme of the summit is Educating African Fit for the 21st Century, building resilient education systems for increased access to inclusive, lifelong, quality, and relevant learning in Africa, according to a statement by Special Advisor on Media and Publicity Ajuri Ngalale. He said President Tinubu will join other African leaders in high-level meetings on institutional reforms of the African Union, peace and security, specific thematic issues such as climate change, as well as modalities of participation and priorities of the continental body in the G20. Tinubu will also attend an extraordinary summit of the Authority of Head of States and Government of Economic Community of West African States in his capacity as the chairman of the regional body on the margins of the summit. President Tinubu will be accompanied on the journey by some ministers and other top government officials, and he is anticipated to return to Abuja following the summit. A recap of major stories says India's Supreme Court strikes down electoral bonds. Kim supervises new surface-to-sea missile test. Field puts spotlight on Philippines Vice President. Investigators seek motive in Chief Super Bowl shooting. And US gains intel on Russian space nuclear capabilities. And that's all on the news. Thanks for watching. I am Lois Turek.